Alright, what's up guys? We've got war number 8 here. It is only the 7th war this season, but war number 4 was canceled. So going into this matchup, we are 4-2. We're in the first, I think we're like top 7 overall on the war leaderboard going into this war. But here are the bans. We've got Ghost, Herc, Torch, very, very common. I'm going to be bringing in, well, we'll talk about the fights first. So you guys can see that Jabari Panther on node 26 on the right there. I'll be using Apocalypse for that. And then I'm going to bring in Captain Marvel movie for this Surfer fight. I'm not technically bringing her in for that fight. I'm just going to use her for that fight to build her up for this fight, which is Nova on node 49. After the season, I'm going to finally put out a video on how I plan War Attack, and I'm going to try to condense it so that it can be used if somebody is looking for a reference as a kind of guide to plan for War Attack. One of the things, literally the first thing that I do, is I look around the map for the most dangerous fights. Nova on node 49 with high ground is one of those fights, and I really like the Captain Marvel movie matchup there. We'll get to that when we get to the fight, but that's why I'm bringing her in. I prioritized a top matchup for that fight because I know how dangerous that fight is. And just the way that the other paths worked out, I was going to be the one bringing Captain Marvel movie. And I'm going to use this fight here on path 3A to get her built up. Now, we'll kind of get into the details of what's on that node here in a second. I am kind of waiting just to see here. I'm like, all right, I'm looking at energy here, and I'm like, all right, cool. We're just going to use the 6-hour boost. And, yeah, so we throw in the 6-hour boost. And then you guys will see here, Lizer's like, yo, before you boost. I'm like, well, unfortunately, I just boosted. I did cut this recording here. I spoke with her. She was just, trying to do some math on the energy so that we could most efficiently get through our Section 2 fights as well. She was just trying to be courteous and generous, and she was going to make some moves for me to save me boost. But yeah, we use the 6-hour boost anyway. All right, so this node here, I can't remember everything that's on it. It's, so every time you hit the defender, number one, you're going to give them a chitin charge, which you guys will see here. It's actually a chitin passive. No, that's a buff. No, that's a passive. All right, so you give them a chitin passive here. There, that's a whoopsie. And when they get to 10, they gain an armor. When they gain an armor, if you hit them, there's a 15% chance for you to get shocked. Now, you guys can see that shock debuff underneath my health bar. Is just feeding into my binary, and it ultimately pushes me into binary ignition, which is great. So now I'm binary, and this was the plan. I was like, yeah, cool, this fight's going to be easy. Watch his power. Do you guys see that? He's getting like huge bursts of power, like Mystic Dispersion power. And the reason is because I am breaking his armor buffs. Now, the way that I thought that this node was written was that it would give you power if you nullified his armors. And, it might say something explicit like if the armors are removed or something like that. I honestly can't remember because I was just under the assumption that it was a nullification only. But, yeah, I mean, you guys can see this fight is now a lot more complicated because he's building up high ground charges. And he's winning the space, the arena spacing battle here because of his power. I'm trying to bait out his SP1. There I screw it up, something I almost never do. I'm almost always on point with his SP1 dexes, and for whatever reason, I just screwed it up there. All right, so now we're building back up to binary. I activate binary a little bit early, which isn't really a huge deal. And here I'm just going to go for the SP3. This will kill him, but you guys can see, I mean, that fight went a lot more poorly than I thought that it would, obviously. But the good news is that we do have her built up pretty well. I think that she ends up at like 19 binary charges for that Nova fight. which is going to help in the Nova fight. So, all right, we are off to Node 26 Jabari Panther. I do think that this is pretty good placement for her. Because, really you can only take this fight almost with somebody like Apocalypse with a Disorient immunity. You could also use like Omega Red, but the reason I don't necessarily think that this is great placement for Jabari is because most people are going to be looking at Apocalypse as a top option for this node anyway, and he is a great option for Jabari Panther. So maybe if they had banned like, Ghost, Hercules and Apocalypse, that would make a little bit more sense. Omega Red even would I think get through this fight pretty quickly, even though he would of course have the disorients on him and stuff. But anyway, the concept here would be that you're going to take a lot of blocked hits with her, given her cleanse mechanic, which we'll talk about in the fight. And she'll inflict the disorient hitting into your block, and then of course she's gaining that 150% Fury passive, just ramping up her damage, and her damage can really get high as is. So, all right, going into this fight, the strategy is the same as you guys have seen for the last several war videos. We are going to take a blocked hit at the beginning. We are going to inflict ourselves with a disorient. So, boom. All right, disorient. I'll let her throw her heavy. She's usually very aggressive. I'm just trying to keep some space here. We do have stun reflect, and I've got 4 genetic codes, so I can't do multiple hits into her block until that is gone. There we go. All right, so her cleanse mechanic is now on cooldown. Apocalypse, even with his ability accuracy reduction on purify abilities, does not, can't cleanse overrules that. Now here, I don't know what I was doing. I'm familiar with her SP2, and I just got antsy there, but we're able to get through it. Whatever. Easy fight. Alright, so the next 2 fights, you guys did see there too, I did have half suicides on. I had bleed suicide on. I wanted to make sure that I built bleed immunity for this fight in particular. This is very common placement for Domino. It has spite, and then if you knock her down, there is a period after you knock her down where she will essentially gain the same abilities that kinetic transference gives defenders for a select period. So when she hits into your block, she'll be gaining power. So I do like Apocalypse. I'm going to be using Apocalypse, obviously. I do like Apocalypse as a matchup here. But, one of the things you have to think about when planning is what's the worst case scenario, and can my assignment survive the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario in this fight is that her power gets out of control, she throws her SP3, and even if you have an invulnerability boost, she crit bleeds you and you just straight up bleed to death. Apocalypse is not bleed immune naturally. You have to gain the bleed immunity. There you guys can see that gray passive underneath. So I have gained it from the previous fight by running suicides. There, I lose my indestructible, so at this point, she cannot get to an SP3. I know that I need to be very, very careful dexing. There, that was like a shallow evade there, so it doesn't trigger dex. Pretty fortunate. There, I do unfortunately trigger dex, so she gets the power flood from spite. And we're just going to bait this SP1. We're going to fully block it. We're going to counter with a full combo into our SP2. And those boosts are just going to get us right back up to an SP2. And then we're going to hold our block, let her charge in at us. Whoops. Alright, so now I'm like, well, fuck. She's going to counter me. She's probably going to stun me. Blah, blah, blah. And boom, look at that. She has too much respect for Apocalypse to do that to him. So there we go. Just want to do 4-hit combos, back off so that we're not triggering spite. Land a safe parry, and we're able to get through it. So Apocalypse with invulnerability there is a very, very good matchup. Just make sure that you have bleed immunity either before that fight, or I would recommend running half suicides with the bleed in that fight if you can't use him prior. You just have to survive 8 seconds. Don't let her get to an SB3 for 8 seconds, and you'll gain that bleed immunity. This fight, this is really bad placement. There aren't really any good places to put Symbiote Supreme. The reason he's placed here is because of the the enhanced power here and aspect of evolution. But here's the thing, he doesn't gain combat power. So kinetic transference is completely ruled out. You guys can see that he's gaining power. Okay, he did gain kinetic transference power there. But yeah, he just doesn't gain power fast enough to be a worthy defender on this node, and Apocalypse is just able to rinse him with SP2s. To be fair, Apocalypse can rinse most champs with SP2s, but you know, pretty wasted placement, and that's one of the more valuable defensive nodes. I would always probably try something different on that node, because that's a node where you can really try to target kills. All right, so here we go. I took this fight once last season, and with a long layoff, it's been a while, almost 2 months, I think, since I took this fight. But that fight went very well. It was over in about 1 minute 20 seconds. I think I finished with about 80% health, 80, 85, something like that. Might have been higher than that. We completely destroyed that fight. This fight is going to go differently. So one thing is I do have suicides on in this fight. I did not have suicides on in the previous fight. Doesn't really matter because we get rid of that bleed. We're up to 95%. We're healing from willpower because we're not taking any damage because of our indestructible. And you can see that this fight is going really well. Now, I would love it if he would just throw his SP1 here. He doesn't. He throws his SP2. I take it on the block. Look, everything is okay. I am taking 1800 high ground damage. There, yeah, that just happened the way that it's not supposed to happen. You guys can also see here, he's at 95 Nova charges, and now he's unblockable. I just wasn't paying attention. You guys can see all those buffs and shit. I mean, there's just so much shit to pay attention to. He is gaining so much power. We're going to throw our SP3 here in just a moment. And yeah, it's not going to kill him, so we're going to have some work to do coming out of this. I'm going to want to bait an SP1, make sure that I fully dex it, but we're in a bad spot here, not, you know, of course. And it's fitting because I thought that this was going to be such an easy one. Alright, so we did have our indestructible there, which is perfect for the block damage, just saved us. I think that SP2, the block damage, would have killed us. And we're able to get through that fight, I would say. We didn't necessarily win the fight, we just managed to survive it. Anyway, that was the war for me. The next war video, guys, is going to be probably a top 2 war video for this season. I think War 3 was a really, really good one. This next war video is also a really, really good one, taking a lot of weird fights with Apocalypse, just almost testing his viability around the map, and he's just a beast. So we ended up losing this war. That dropped us to 4-3. It dropped us to the 2nd bracket in Masters, and yeah, like I said, tune in for that next video. It's awesome, definitely worth your time. Leave a like and a comment on this one if you want, and subscribe if you want to get notified. That is it. I will see you later.